Hello, everyone. Welcome again. Today's Thursday, so for Community CPA, it's kind of our special day. We always invite a guest speaker here to talk about resources and issues that business owners and others in our community are facing. And it's our chance to get to spotlight a business or resource in the community. So today we are going to be talking about mental health in the workplace. And with me here today is Carlos Arguello, who is the founder of Sublime, which is a platform to connect Latinos to mental health services. Carlos, thank you for being with us.
And our pleasure to be here, Catherine, and thank you for the invite.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, Community CPA is a full service accounting firm. We do taxes, payroll, audit and attest, business consultation services. So please do feel free to reach out to us if you need us. All right, we will go ahead and jump in. Carlos, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background and the idea that brought about your company?
Yeah, so my name is Carlos Arguello. I'm the CEO and founder of Sublime. And just a little bit about myself, background-wise, I'm a first-gen immigrant. Came to the U.S. when I was very, very young, around 7, 8 years old. And very traditional immigrant story, right? Came up, I was born in Nicaragua, and we came to California when I was young, as I said, and grew up in California, and then came to Iowa right around the end of junior high, beginning of high school. Went to college here at UNI and also at MIT. And really did some work in the corporate sector for about 15 years. Worked with John Deere globally. I was based out of Kansas City, but really it really took me all around the world, working in product development, in marketing, really that kind of sphere, bringing new products to market. And also have been an entrepreneur really all of my life. I began my first company when I was 14, which was a translation service here in Iowa. And really just have had the entrepreneurial bug really all of my life, even though I did work for corporate America for many, many years. And then to the second part of your question, a little bit about Sublime. Sublime is a digital platform really tackling the emotional wellness space, where we're really focusing on bringing parity and equal access to mental wellness to the Latino community to begin with, but then really looking to branch out to other ethnicities and minorities that have the same need and the same challenges really accessing mental wellness. Our platform is completely digital, so all of our services are done through our website and through our upcoming mobile app. And really what we do is just connect folks that are looking for some guidance, for some counseling, for some help really in the emotional wellness space, with whatever that might be. And we connect them to providers who are vetted and experienced and can treat them in a way that is culturally relatable or culturally responsive. And then also in a specific language that they may require. So for specifically with Latinos, if we have a Latino user that comes onto the platform and they want to speak to somebody in Spanish, for example, then obviously we have that capability as well.
Awesome. So when you spoke about targeting Latinos, can you speak about the gaps between Latinos and emotional wellness services that we have here and how this tries to fill that gap?
Yeah, so, emotional wellness is a topic that is very prevalent right now because of the pandemic and, you know, the future of work with a lot of people working remotely, you know, and lots of things that are going around in our country and around the world, where now it's made it more okay, I guess is the term to use to talk about emotional wellness and our needs, because we're all struggling from one thing or another, and we can all really relate to that in one way or another. So we're able to have conversations um, to really, you know, focus around that and be okay with it. But there's still big stigmas and big barriers culturally that, you know, we might find in the Latino community or the Asian community or the African American community or whatever, that still kind of hold people back, right? The other thing too is that realistically, as human beings, we still fail to provide enough priority to our mental wellness like we do with physical wellness, you know, such as, you know, going to the doctor when we're sick, or maintaining a proper diet, or working out, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, it's a big deal for anybody, regardless of, you know, what background you're from. We're focusing on Latinos to begin with because we found a big opportunity and a big need, really working with some of the world-class leading institutions that look at mental wellness needs and gaps to access. And we found actually very early on that Latinos, there's a huge group, millions and millions of Latinos, specifically in the US, who every single year come up and say, you know what, I have a mental wellness issue I want to be seen for, talk to somebody for. But because of levels of, because of systemic and institutional barriers, that group, and also African Americans are quite high in that group, they tend to not really get the access or the ability to be treated like other groups and ethnicities in the US. So that's one reason why we focus in the Latino space. The second reason is because obviously Latinos have been and will continue to be, unless something dramatically happens, the fastest demographic and group in the US as far as growth, regardless if you're talking about, you know, in big cities or in rural areas. Latinos continue to be the driving force in many of our rural areas, and as well as bigger cities. So when we think about the need and when we think about the supply and demand, Latinos obviously stick out. But the idea behind that is, you know, we're starting with Latinos, and then also the idea is not to only be Latino driven or Latino centric, right? We're starting with that group because of the needs and the challenges I just talked about. But it's also something that we plan to branch out to other ethnicities, and then also just to the general population, anybody that speaks English, Caucasian groups, et cetera, et cetera. But we're starting with Latinos because of that. The other component too is that's very important to talk about, is that when you think about mental wellness in a country like ours, if you look at the numbers, you know, there's a huge shortage of supply for mental wellness providers for any of us that speak English, and don't have a requirement to see somebody in a different language. There's a huge shortage for anybody that wants to really seek those services. There's even a bigger shortage if you are somebody who wants to speak to somebody in a different language. The last stat I saw, for example, that really showcases how big of a shortage there is. In the US, for example, there's roughly 100,000 providers that can be categorized with expertise in mental wellness. Less than 5% of all those providers can speak a second language, not only just Spanish, but just any second language. So as we think about all the diversity and how that's growing in the US, this is a big deal, because it's not a problem that we can throw money at or something that we can grow and have overnight. It's truly something that it's a pandemic problem, right? That needs to be addressed, and it's going to be here for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about moving and shifting to the ideas of wellness through a platform, can you speak about some of the pros and cons of doing that and some of the challenges you've seen, but also some successes?
in regards to being a digital platform?
For mental health, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, when we think about mental health, when most people think about mental health, we think about the traditional way of, psychology or therapy, right? Where you're going somewhere, seeing somebody sitting on a couch, the stereotypical, somebody in the background with a little pen and paper, writing while you're, laying back on a couch and kind of just, spilling your guts out, right? That has changed. That has changed, and that will continue to change for many different reasons. One of the reasons is because of pandemic. Obviously with telehealth, things have morphed in a way where it makes it more accessible and available 24/7. Just being able to connect via Zoom or an app or whatever, as long as you have internet, you can talk to really any provider anymore. So that's great. But then also the request and demand that we have as a society where we're always on the go and we just don't have the time to do anything, right? So we always want to do things in the most convenient way possible. So those are the pros. Also, another pro, I guess, before I leave that side is, our younger demographic, our millennials, or Gen Zs, or Gen Alphas. I mean, they're even tied and glued and dependent on technology a lot more than any other, age group, right? So that's just something that's becoming a mainstay. That how do I consume? How do I consume health tech? How do I really talk to providers? And even though providers hate in many cases telehealth because of that, that's just really the way of the future that that people are going to have to get used to. So that's the pro, I think, of kind of how that really has morphed. In terms of the well, sorry, one more thing. I'm kind of just losing my thoughts. Along with that technology, though, the convenience factor of having to, not have to travel and be judged and seen, because going to an office and be able to talk to somebody in the privacy of my own home is also something that goes along with those pros. On the con side, it's the connectivity. There's still, believe it or not, there's still some rural areas that don't have good access to internet. So the connectivity aspect also is there. The trust factor of, at least when I talk to somebody face to face in a room, I know that it can't be leaked or hacked or, put on YouTube. So there's some concerns about that. And then also, I think that there's a little bit of a perception that maybe the quality is not as good if you talk to providers that you can't see face to face, right? So I think those are some of the cons that we deal with sometimes and have to address and educate our users. But really, I think that the pros outweigh the cons a lot more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're thinking about emotional wellness services, as it pertains to businesses, why is it so crucial to businesses and its employees to have access to these sort of resources?
Yeah, I mean, you think about when you're an employee, right? You get benefits traditionally from your employer, such as retirement benefits, health benefits, and maybe some other perks that might be unique to that company or to an industry. Even though you might have health insurance, even the best health insurance plans fail to bring the parity or the priority to mental wellness like we place on physical wellness, right? So even if you have the best health health insurance policy, and you're looking to seek help in the mental wellness space, you might only get 1 or 2 visits really fully covered, and then after that, you're paying out of pocket. And then a lot of policies don't even cover mental wellness, as a whole, right? So why is that important in the environment of a company, both for the organization and for the employers and for the employees, is because, like I said before, the mental wellness of an employee is as critical as anything else. Forbes put out a article just recently where they've done several studies in some of the top firms of America, and they have found that attendance, absenteeism, and people being tardy and stuff like that, 60% of the time, it is not tied to a personal issue. It's tied to a mental wellness issue that person has going on, that has connections, that's keeping them from coming to work or being present at work or running late. When you translate that into a dollars and cents standpoint of how much money a company might lose because of absenteeism, those are hundreds and millions of dollars that companies lose every single year because their most important resource or asset, which is the human talent, the human capital, is not well. So why is that important for an organization? Because mental wellness from an employee standpoint has direct impact and correlation to the productivity of an organization, to minimizing the costs. And then also there's lots of companies who think about wellness by giving people gym memberships or, access to this subscription or whatever. That's great and everything, but really where everything starts and it kind of goes downhill from there, it starts here. Everything that happens in our bodies and in our systems, it starts here. So this is not 100% firing all cylinders. There's going to be problems, and then also health costs also increase because somebody could have done something from a maintenance standpoint. Now they have to be hospitalized or maybe be out of work for a longer time because it's not caught on early on. So that's on the employer side or the organization side, right? The direct impact to the bottom line of a company. For the employee side, why is it important? There's no barriers anymore. There's no lines between work and life, right? Work and home life, right? Whatever happens at home, we drag that to the workplace in one way or another. Whatever happens at work, we drag that back home one way or another. Even though a lot of us really fight to shut things off and really separate things, it just doesn't happen that easy. So, the reality is that company culture, employee morale, collaboration, and innovation between and among employees, again, is also something that's directly correlated with employee state of mind. And if we're firing all cylinders, we can be successful and really be the kings or queens of our domain in whatever we're working. But if we're not 100% firing all cylinders, then we struggle. If you think about, what they're coining as the Great Resignation now, and the pandemic of, employees really just leaving and changing jobs left and right, if companies really think about the culture and how they invest money back into the company, back into the employees with the wellness space, that's one true way that we can go back and help with this, hiring pandemic, if you will, that every single business in America has. So that's where we really see two sides of the coin and two sides of the benefits that companies and employees should think about when it comes to mental wellness.
Yeah, well said, Carlos. So when we're thinking about setting up a space for that, so what can businesses and entrepreneurs do to set up emotional well-being practices within their organizations? What are your suggestions?
Yeah, so, on the organization side, first of all, be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Not hiding and not mincing words about what we're doing and why we're doing, and really getting back to that culture to say, here at XYZ company, we really believe that this is impactful, and here's the reason why. So just like owning it, right? Just very much so like what a lot of companies are how they're owning, like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is something that's just as huge when it comes to a health of a company. So owning it, promoting it, and then obviously investing in it, right? Another Forbes article that came out recently talked about how when companies invest in mental wellness policies and benefits and structure, for every dollar they spend, they see a $4 ROI back to the company, right? So this is real dollars that companies can think about and use when it comes to an investment. So that's on the organization side, right? Be open, be promoting it, and really focus on the importance of, the company's most important resource. And the company's most important resource or asset is their human capital or human asset, which is their employees. On the employee side, it sounds kind of dumb or obvious, but don't be afraid to ask for the help. The world, all the world-class organizations today, if you take a look at the ones that are doing this correctly, recognize and spend, a serious amount of resources in making sure that there's a emotional wellness component within an organization. So if your company doesn't have it, ask for it. If it doesn't, if it can't do it, figure out maybe how you can think about forming groups within your organization, and maybe do that internally to be able to promote that from a peer-to-peer standpoint. So there's different ways. Also, obviously, as an employee, even though if your company doesn't provide that, there are plenty of services out there that you can subscribe to that are very, very economical, that really helps you kind of be the best version of yourself. Anything from mindfulness apps, anything from, technology that kind of watches, your breathing, your heart rate, your sleep patterns, triggers, right? That kind of go towards stress or anxiety. Those are things that anyone can really invest in themselves to be able to provide the best version of themselves. So that's the other thing. And the last thing, again, which is pretty obvious, is seek help, right? Seek help. Don't get into the whole issues of stigma and barriers and judgment, right? If you feel you need to talk to anybody, if you feel you need to just let it off your chest, right? This is, psychology and emotional wellness and therapy and mindfulness and all these other wonderful things. They're not what our grandparents grew up thinking that they were, what we might have been told, right? Like, oh, that person goes to therapy, they're, crazy, don't talk to them, right? That's not true. It's truly about caring about yourself and providing the best version of yourself, both in the work environment and then also for yourself and your family if you have one, right? So that's what I would say. If you're an entrepreneur and maybe you don't have the full resources, if you're a small business, I would tell you it doesn't take much. If you are a 1 to 2 to 3 4, if you're a solopreneur, put it this way, you are the most important piece of your business. If you're not firing in all 100 cylinders, right? You need to figure out how to do that because you work 20 hours a day, you wear every single hat. So if you're a solopreneur, your health, your overall well-being is the most important piece that you own and can do, regardless of what product or service you have. If you are an entrepreneur where you just have a small team, maybe 5 people, 10 people, or whatever, don't sweep it under the rug to say, we're too small to worry about that, or we can't afford it. That's not true. There's lots of solutions out there that are catered to small businesses that are very, very economical, that provide awesome dividends. And again, I would argue that if you're also an entrepreneur with a small team, you even depend even so more on the well-being of your team and making sure that they're at the top peak performance. And that also includes mental performance as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's important that you view it as a culture shift at the workplace, right? So how can Sublime help businesses? Do you work with businesses to provide tools and services?
Yeah, so we're a startup. We're about 2 years old now, and we've been focused really on the direct-to-consumer space, just really having people, like I said, our users come onto our platform and use our services. But recently, as of the last 6 months, we've been transitioning into the B2B space, and we've been developing this tool called Sublime for businesses. And really, that just came out of pure demand where people contacted us to say, hey, you really helped us out on the individual side. But I would love to bring this back to my workplace. How can we work together? Or, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. This freaking is awesome and it worked for me. I would love to bring it to my team. How do we do that? So we rolled out Sublime for businesses, and it provides many different services. Obviously the obvious ones are, mental therapy, digital therapy, right? Telehealth therapy or teletherapy, if you want to call it that, or online counseling. So, at the very least, we have packages and ways that we can connect, businesses and their employees to, mental wellness help. anything from psychologists to therapists to social workers, mindfulness folks. For us at Sevalin, emotional wellness does not look only one way. We feel that, anxiety, depression, family issues, stress, you name it, those are all very specific issues that have different forms of treatment. And that form of treatment should not be dictated by me as a professional to say, this is the only way that you're going to get better. I think that what we feel is that we're going to choose a journey that you feel more comfortable in, and then we're going to help you in that manner. And then maybe we peg that with another way of treatment, right? But it's about the user, what they're most comfortable with. And at the end of the day, we know what the end goal is. We know that if you're anxious or you have depression or stress, we know what the end goal is by getting you to a better state. But that roadmap that we paint that takes you along that ride could look different between what I prefer as a user than maybe what you prefer, Catherine. So that's where Sevalin really shines, where we think about that. So we could definitely help people think about that on the business setting, but then we also have different tools to really look at the organization and be able to pinpoint and consult and help you really take a look at your culture, take a look at what's going on in your environment and your business, and show you different ways on how mental wellness services and tools and resources can really help you and tie in directly to the bottom line on the operation side or on the financial side.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Carlos, for sharing. I think you have some wonderful insights and definitely a passion for sharing the emotional wellness tools. So thank you for that. What is the best way that people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you could go to sevalin.com, and that's spelled S-E-V as in Victor, ELYN.com. You can find us on the social media. We are working on being better with social media. But we're out there. It's not the prettiest, but we're working on making that prettier. But either contacting us online, coming to the social media, or just calling directly or emailing directly. My email is Carlos, C-A-R-L-O-S @sevalin.com, and really we can just begin a conversation that way.
Perfect. Yes. And I am, of course, happy to help connect any of our listeners to Carlos as well. So we'll do that after this talk. So again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and your platform. And I'll connect with you later. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye.